We're all familiar with the image of a ship's wheel from the Age of Sail. They're always a very large thing with spokes and handles along its sides, and they're always located towards the stern of the ship on the quarterdeck, where officers clad in blue circle around the thing barking orders to their men. Sometimes we see a single man at the wheel, keeping the course of the vessel steady and true on a calm and sunny day. And other times we see teams of men fighting against it, heaving and pushing as hard as they can to keep the ship safe during the harshest of storms. But while the image of the ship's wheel is so popular, for many of us the question remains, how does it actually end up steering the ship? That was one of the questions which I asked myself when I was visiting the historic dockyards at Portsmouth, the home of HMS Victory, which is a Georgian-era first-rate ship of the line, and, of course, Nelson's famous flagship at the Battle of Trafalgar. With over 100 guns and a displacement of 3,500 tons, she was among the largest and most powerful vessels of her day, so I'm sure you can imagine just how difficult it would have been to steer such an enormous vessel, especially in choppy waters, or even worse, in a battle, where the ship's wheel would have been one of the most important parts of the entire vessel. And the entire thing, the entire process, is reliant on this: a single piece of rope. Now, as you can see, the wheel of the Victory is actually more like two wheels, with a massive bar of wood between them. Wrapped around it is a long rope, which drops down into two holes through the deck floor. So you can see, as the wheel is turned to starboard, the left side of the rope is pulled up and coils around the wheel, while the right rope uncoils and drops below. And when the wheel is turned to port, the opposite, with the left rope uncoiling and the right coiling. It's a fairly straightforward thing, but to see how this pulling and dropping of ropes translates into steering, we need to follow them below decks. Immediately below the wheel, on the upper gun deck inside one of the ship's offices, we see the rope carry straight down, and what surprised me most here was that the rope, despite going through what was an occupied part of the ship, was also completely exposed. There's no sort of wooden or even metal casing around it, it's just open to the air. It carries on through this room from the ceiling, and again through the flooring to here, on the middle gun deck, and it's here that the rope connects to the ship's rudder. You can see the rope comes through the ceiling and immediately divides. On each side, the rope is carried along the ceiling to the ship's side. Here, it's wrapped around another bar, and as you can see, it's more tightly controlled here, so the rope doesn't have any room to slide up or down or otherwise move out of place. It then doubles back, where it's fed into a more secure track. The rounded track leads here towards the center of the ship, where it's fed through loops which attach to this large black bar. This bar is the tiller, and the tiller attaches, of course, to the ship's rudder outside. So as the wheel is turned above, one end of the rope is dragged up, which pulls the tiller and swings it across the deck, turning the rudder. And if you're curious how the tiller can actually be pulled like that, how it can sweep across the deck, the white posts that you see are actually Victorian additions to the ship. They wouldn't have been there when she was actually under sail, and so there wouldn't be anything to block the passage of the tiller. And as you can see here, the rudder also runs along the same track that the rope does, ensuring that it doesn't swing around too wildly, or even worse, drop out of place and snap the ropes. Now, I understand that this may still be somewhat difficult to picture in our minds, what with all the different directions that the ropes are going in, and how it actually connects to the wheel up above. So to aid in simplifying the matter, I decided to make use of my stunning artistic abilities. Now, it may seem that I hired a professional artist, or perhaps even, a team of engineers in the production of this diagram, but I assure you, my dear viewer, that this piece is purely of my own creation. In this example, the ship is being turned to the right, to starboard. And to do this, we turn the ship's wheel right as well. As such, the right end of the rope drops down, and the left is pulled upwards around the wheel. As the motion carries through, and you can see it reflected here by my beautifully drawn arrows in green, the tiller is pulled to the left. And as the rudder outside the ship is attached to the tiller, it goes right, and the ship turns to starboard. It's a very simple system, and as you can see, the ability to steer the ship is literally reliant on a single, fairly thin, all things considered, piece of rope. Now, as one might expect, this makes it particularly vulnerable during a battle. Not only can the wheel itself be destroyed, but the exposed rope could be cut through at any point. Indeed, at the Battle of Trafalgar, this actually happened when the Victory's wheel was shattered by a stray bit of cannon shot. 40 men had to actually be pulled away from the battle and rushed down to the tiller, where they manually moved it back and forth, with orders being shouted down to them from up above. This was also around the same chaotic moment that Admiral Nelson had been shot, and it is said that while he was being carried below decks, he took the time to stop and direct the men rigging up those temporary ropes, because it was such a vital task to the survival and functioning of the ship in the battle. But of course, in a more or less pre-industrial society, you can't expect the system to be much more complex than this. Keep in mind that the grand majority of this ship, and all other Georgian ships, weren't made by machines, but by hand. Every piece of wood is sort of custom-made for that particular role. We wouldn't see more modern designs of ships' wheels and rudders, with iron rods and gears and the like to keep the whole thing together instead of a single bit of rope, until the mid to late 19th century, when such complicated metalworking was possible on the industrial scale necessary to construct a full warship. Even HMS Warrior, the British Empire's first iron-hulled warship, which was built in 1860 and had a very significantly sized steam engine in it, utilized more or less the same rope-based system for its steering. Though it did actually have multiple wheels on multiple decks, and that did grant a fair bit more security than relying, as the Victory did, on just the one wheel. So, there we have it. That is how a ship's wheel actually extends down and controls the rudder, allowing the ship to navigate. The next time we visit the town of Portsmouth, we'll ask a similar question about anchors and the capstan. But until such a time, I am and I shall remain, my dear viewer, your most humble and obedient of servants.